The grand hall of the Zyrith Empire was filled with silence. Bright crystal lights hung above, and banners of silver and gold stretched along the walls. Every alien noble sat on high chairs, watching the trial. At the center stood Princess Arya, tall and radiant, her long silver hair flowing down her shoulders. She looked calm, but inside she was burning with anger. The High Council spoke with cold voices. "Princess Arya," one elder said, "you disobeyed the Empire's command. You gave aid to rebels instead of crushing them. Your actions bring shame to our rule." Arya lifted her chin proudly. "I will not slaughter the weak. Our empire calls it justice, but it is only cruelty. I will not follow such orders." The nobles gasped. Her words were dangerous. For a long time, the empire ruled by fear, and no one dared speak against the council. But Arya had done so openly, and now she stood on trial. The council could not execute her. She was beloved by the people, and such an act might cause unrest. Instead, they searched for a punishment that would humiliate her, something to break her pride without staining their honor. The leader of the council, a tall figure with deep red skin, announced the judgment. "Your punishment will not be death. Instead, you will be bound in marriage to a human." A murmur spread across the hall. Humans were considered primitive compared to the Zyrith. To marry one was unthinkable for a princess. Arya's eyes widened in shock, but she did not bow her head. She clenched her fists tightly. "A human," she whispered to herself. "You would lower me so far?" The council only nodded. "Yes. You will be taken to Earth. You will live among them as wife to one chosen man. Let this be a lesson in humility." Guards led Arya away, though she walked with steady steps. She would not show fear, even if her heart felt heavy. The journey to Earth was long. From the windows of her ship, Arya saw the blue planet shining like a gem in the darkness of space. It was beautiful, though simple. The air, the seas, the green lands all so different from the crystal towers of her home. When the ship landed, she was greeted not by soldiers, but by a single man. His name was Daniel. He stood straight, his clothes plain compared to her royal dress. His dark hair was uncombed, and his hands showed the roughness of work. He bowed slightly, though without fear or trembling. "So you are the princess," Daniel said in a calm voice. "I was told you would come." Arya narrowed her eyes. She expected awe, or at least respect, but his tone was level, as if meeting her was nothing unusual. "You speak without honor," she replied sharply. "Do you not know who I am?" "I know," Daniel said. "But here, you are not a princess. You are my wife." The words struck her like a blade. She wanted to shout, but she held herself steady. "You think you can speak to me like that? You are nothing but a human." Daniel shrugged. "Maybe. But I will not kneel to someone who thinks themselves higher than me. You'll find no servants here." Arya felt her pride boiling inside, but she also felt something strange curiosity. This man was not afraid of her beauty, her title, or her power. He stood before her like an equal. In the Zyrith Empire, none had ever done that. Daniel took her to his home, a small place made of stone and wood. Compared to the shining halls she had known, it was almost insulting. Yet there was a quiet peace to it. The air was fresh, the fields wide and open. Birds sang in the distance, and the sun warmed her skin. Inside, the house was simple. A table, chairs, shelves filled with books, and a fireplace. No servants waited. No guards stood by. It was just the two of them. "You will have to get used to this," Daniel said. "Life here is not full of luxury." Arya crossed her arms. "This is no life for a princess. I will not stay in such a place." Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "Then you will suffer, because this is all I have to give." For the first time, Arya had no reply. She turned away, hiding her frustration. She had been punished, yes. But more than punishment, this was a challenge. To live with a man who did not see her as above him, who spoke to her with honesty instead of fear, it unsettled her. That night, Arya stood by the window, watching the stars. She thought of her palace, the shining lights, the loyal attendants who obeyed every word. Now, all of that was gone. She was bound to a human, trapped in a small house on a simple world. Her pride screamed that she had been humiliated. Yet another voice whispered that perhaps this was not the end, but the beginning of something she did not yet understand. Daniel sat by the fire, silent, reading a book. He did not try to comfort her, nor did he try to command her. He simply lived, calm and steady, as if her presence was not a storm but just another part of his day. Arya clenched her hand on the window frame. This punishment, she thought, will not break me. I am still a princess. But deep inside, she felt the first spark of change, an uneasy feeling that this human might be far more than the punishment she believed him to be. Morning sunlight streamed through the small window of Daniel's house. Princess Arya woke with a frown. The bed was too plain, the blanket too rough, and the smell of the wooden room was far from the perfume-scented chambers she had always known. She sat up, her silver hair falling over her shoulders, and looked around with irritation. "This is no place for a princess," she muttered. From the kitchen, she heard sounds of clattering dishes. Daniel was already awake. She walked out and found him preparing food, eggs frying in a pan, bread on the table, and a pot of steaming tea. Daniel looked at her once and said, "You should eat." Arya's eyes narrowed. "Where is my servant? Do you expect me to serve myself?" Daniel didn't even look offended. He simply set another plate on the table. "I expect you to be able to lift a fork. Sit and eat. Or don't. It doesn't matter to me." Arya was shocked. In the Empire, no one spoke to her like this. People bowed, trembled, and rushed to please her. But this human spoke as if she were only another person. She sat at the table, refusing to touch the food at first. Yet the smell of warm bread and eggs reached her nose, and her stomach betrayed her pride with a soft growl. Daniel noticed but said nothing. After a few moments, Arya finally picked up a piece of bread and ate. To her surprise, it was good. Simple, but good. She hated that she enjoyed it. Later that day, Daniel stepped outside to chop wood. Arya followed, arms crossed, watching him work. His movements were steady, strong, and practiced. Sweat formed on his brow as he swung the axe again and again, splitting logs with sharp cracks. "Such labor is for workers, not for husbands of princesses," Arya said. Daniel paused only to wipe his forehead. "Here, everyone works. Even husbands of princesses." Arya scoffed. "In my world, I was never made to lift a hand. Others served me." "That explains a lot," Daniel said calmly, lifting another log. Arya's face burned with anger. "What do you mean by that?" Daniel looked at her with level eyes. "It means you have no idea what real life is. You think comfort is strength. But strength is surviving when life is hard. That's what humans do." The words struck her, though she refused to show it. Instead, she turned away, but his voice stayed in her mind. In the days that followed, Arya tried to command Daniel in small ways. "Bring me water," she ordered one afternoon. Daniel pointed to the well outside. "It's there. You can carry a bucket." "Wash my clothes," she demanded another day. "There's soap by the stream," Daniel replied. "You'll manage." At first, Arya was furious. She had never been told "do it yourself" in her entire life. Yet slowly, something unexpected happened. She began to try. The first time she carried a bucket of water, she nearly stumbled, but she refused to let Daniel see her weakness. The second time, it was easier. She washed her own clothes by the stream, grumbling the whole time, but she also felt a strange sense of pride when she finished. At night, when she sat by the fire, she found herself staring at Daniel. He did not seek her approval, did not flatter her, did not fear her. He simply lived his life, steady as a mountain. For reasons she could not explain, that unsettled her more than any insult. One evening, after a long silence, Arya finally spoke. "Do you not care that I am a princess?" Daniel closed the book he was reading and looked at her. "I know who you are. But it changes nothing. You're human enough to bleed, to eat, to laugh. Titles don't impress me." Arya blinked, stunned by his words. Everyone in the Empire always looked at her beauty and her crown first. No one had ever looked past it. But this human did. "You are a strange man," she said softly. Daniel gave a small smile. "So I've been told." Despite herself, Arya began to notice little things. The way Daniel fixed a broken chair with his hands. The way he worked in the garden, planting seeds with patience. The way he always left her space, never forcing her to follow his rules, but never bending to hers either. It was a life she had never known, a life where people were equal, where survival came from effort, not from commanding others. One night, lying in bed, she stared at the wooden ceiling and thought deeply. "This is not punishment," she admitted to herself. "This is something else. Something I do not understand yet." But her pride was still strong. The next morning, she looked at Daniel with a haughty smile and said, "Perhaps I will teach you how to live as royalty. You should learn manners." Daniel only chuckled, lighting the fire. "And perhaps you'll learn how to live as a human. We'll see which happens first." For the first time, Arya found herself laughing. The sound surprised even her. The punishment had just begun, but already, her heart was being tested in way. Days turned into weeks, and Princess Arya slowly became used to life on Earth, though she never stopped complaining. She disliked the rough clothes Daniel gave her, the plain food, and the endless work. Yet in spite of herself, she was learning. She knew how to carry water without spilling it, how to keep the fire burning, and even how to prepare simple meals. Still, her pride never let her admit that she was changing. One afternoon, Arya sat outside watching Daniel repair a fence. He hammered wooden posts into the ground, his muscles moving with each strike. "This is foolish," Arya said with a frown. "Why not order others to do this? In my empire, workers would build such things while nobles planned greater matters." Daniel didn't look up. "Here, we build what we need. If I waited for others, the fence would never be done." Arya lifted her chin. "That is why empires are stronger. The weak serve the strong. It is the natural way." Daniel finally looked at her. His eyes were steady but sharp. "And yet your empire sent you here as punishment. Maybe it's not as strong as you think." Arya's face flushed with anger. "How dare you?" Daniel cut her off. "I dare because I am human. We don't measure strength by how many obey us. We measure it by how much we can endure." For a moment, Arya was speechless. No one had ever spoken to her like this. She wanted to shout, but instead she turned away, her pride wounded. That evening, they sat by the fire. Arya refused to speak at first, but Daniel broke the silence. "Tell me about your world," he said. Arya hesitated. "It is a world of crystal towers and shining rivers. Our ships can cross the galaxy in days. Our people live in luxury, surrounded by beauty. We are above all others." Daniel nodded slowly. "Sounds like a cage." Arya's eyes widened. "A cage? It is paradise." "Maybe," Daniel said calmly. "But it sounds like everything is done for you. No struggle, no effort. You don't know what it means to fight for every day." Arya leaned forward angrily. "And what is so noble about struggle? Why suffer when you can rule?" Daniel poked the fire with a stick, his face thoughtful. Because struggle makes us strong. It teaches us to value life. Without it, strength is only an illusion. His words unsettled Arya. She wanted to argue more, but deep inside, she felt a small sting of truth. The next day, Arya tried to prove herself right. She walked with Daniel to the nearby town. Humans there lived in small houses, traded food, and greeted one another with smiles. They were not rich, yet they seemed content. Children laughed as they ran through the streets. Farmers sold their goods with pride. Arya whispered to Daniel, "They live with so little, yet they smile as if they own the stars. I do not understand." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's what I mean. We may not have your towers or wealth, but we have each other. We know joy in small things." Arya crossed her arms. "Small things do not last. Empires last. Empires fall," Daniel replied. "But people endure." Arya fell silent. She wanted to argue, but seeing the town, she could not. Later, as they returned home, rain began to pour. The path turned muddy, and Arya stumbled. Her fine shoes sank into the dirt, and she nearly fell. Daniel offered his hand, but she pulled away, determined to walk without his help. "You're too proud," Daniel said quietly. "And you are too simple," Arya snapped. They walked in silence, the sound of rain filling the air. Yet when they reached the house, Arya realized she had never before walked through a storm without servants to shield her. She was wet, tired, and cold, but she was also alive in a way she had never felt. That night, sitting by the fire in dry clothes, Arya looked at Daniel. "Why do you never bow to me?" she asked. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Why should I?" "Because I am a princess," Arya answered firmly. Daniel shook his head. "Not here. Here, you are just a woman learning how to live. Titles don't keep you warm at night. They don't keep the rain from soaking you. Work does. Effort does." Arya stared at him, her pride and her curiosity clashing. She hated that he was right, yet she also felt something new: respect. As the firelight flickered, Arya thought deeply. She had always believed her people were above all others, yet this human lived with strength she could not deny. His world was harsh, his life simple, but there was dignity in it. She lay down to rest, but sleep did not come easily. The clash between her old beliefs and what she was learning here stirred inside her. "This man," she thought, "is unlike anyone I have ever met. He refuses to bow, yet he also refuses to break. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I believed." And for the first time since her punishment began, Arya wondered if her marriage to a human might change her more than the council had ever planned. The days of quiet life did not last. Far beyond Earth, whispers of rebellion and unrest spread through the Zyrith Empire. Some nobles were furious that Princess Arya still lived. To them, her punishment was too soft. They wanted her gone forever, and her marriage to a human was not enough. One shadowy group of assassins was sent in secret to finish what the council dared not do openly. Their orders were clear: silence the princess, erase her shame from history. Arya knew nothing of this as she stood in the field outside Daniel's home, watching the sun sink low. The sky glowed in shades of orange and gold. She breathed deeply, surprised at how fresh Earth's air felt compared to the perfumed palaces of her world. Daniel was chopping wood again, his axe rising and falling with steady rhythm. Arya shook her head. "You humans are always working." Daniel looked at her, a faint smile on his lips. "That's how we survive." Before Arya could reply, she felt a shift in the air, a silent tension. Her royal senses sharpened. "Something is wrong," she whispered. Daniel noticed her expression change. "What do you mean?" "Someone is watching," Arya said softly. Her words proved true. 3 cloaked figures stepped out from the trees. Their movements were fast, their weapons sharp and glowing faintly with alien energy. Daniel grabbed Arya's arm and pulled her behind him. "Stay close." The assassins spread out, surrounding them. One spoke in a harsh alien tongue, his voice cold. "Princess Arya, your life ends here. The Empire will forget your weakness." Arya's heart pounded. She had seen battles before, but never without guards or armies to protect her. Here she stood with only Daniel, a simple human with no weapons of power. Yet Daniel did not back down. He moved slowly, placing himself between Arya and the attackers. His eyes were calm, his voice firm. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The assassins laughed. "You? A human? You cannot stand against us." Daniel's grip on his axe tightened. "Try me." The fight began quickly. One assassin lunged forward, blade flashing. Daniel sidestepped, swinging his axe with brutal force. The weapon cracked against the alien's chest, sending him stumbling back. Another came from the side, striking fast. Daniel ducked, grabbed a handful of dirt, and threw it into the assassin's eyes. As the enemy staggered, Daniel struck again with the axe. Arya watched in shock. Daniel fought with no training in alien arts, yet every move was clever, built from survival and instinct. He used the land, the dirt, the wood around him. His strength came not from technology, but from determination. The third assassin tried to rush Arya directly. Her heart froze, but before the blade reached her, Daniel blocked the path, taking the strike on the handle of his axe. The weapon splintered, but Daniel's fist followed, striking the assassin hard across the face. Arya's breath caught. "Daniel," she cried. He turned his head slightly. "Stay back." His voice carried no fear, only command. It was the first time Arya obeyed without question. She stepped back, her eyes wide, watching as this human her punishment, her husband fought for her life. The assassins regrouped, anger burning in their eyes. One raised a weapon glowing with energy, aiming directly at Daniel. Arya's instincts surged. She lifted her hand, summoning a small spark of her own royal power. A shield of light flashed between them, deflecting the blast. The assassin snarled in frustration. Daniel didn't waste the chance. He tackled the attacker, forcing him to the ground. The fight was rough, desperate, but Daniel's will did not break. With a final strike, the assassin fell silent. The others, wounded and shaken, realized the battle was lost. They vanished into the shadows, leaving the field quiet once more. Daniel stood breathing hard, his axe broken, his shirt torn, but he was alive. He turned to Arya, his eyes still steady. "Are you hurt?" Arya shook her head slowly. Her voice trembled. "No, you protected me." Daniel dropped what was left of the axe and sat heavily on a log. "That's what husbands do." Arya stared at him, her heart pounding. Never before had anyone protected her like this, not because of her crown, not because of duty, but simply because he chose to. He risked his life not as a soldier of the Empire, but as a man who refused to let harm touch her. That night, as Daniel rested by the fire, Arya sat beside him in silence. She looked at his hands, rough and bloodied, and felt a strange warmth in her chest. "You are not like the others," she whispered. Daniel glanced at her, his voice calm. "I told you. Humans endure." Arya lowered her gaze, her pride struggling against the truth she now saw clearly. This human was not weak. He was stronger than many warriors of her people, not in power, but in spirit. And for the first time, she felt not humiliation in her punishment, but safety in his presence. The attack had changed everything. Arya could still hear the sound of blades clashing, still see the moment Daniel had stood before her, ready to face death without hesitation. That night she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the small wooden house, her mind full of thoughts she had never known before. In the palace, she had always been guarded by soldiers, praised by nobles, obeyed by servants. But none of them had ever risked themselves in such a way, not for her as a person, but for her as a crown. Daniel had fought not because she was Princess Arya of the Zyrith Empire, but simply because she was his wife. That truth echoed in her heart. The next morning, Arya rose early. For once, she did not wait for Daniel to bring her food. She walked to the kitchen, found the bread and fruit, and set them on the table herself. When Daniel entered, rubbing his sore shoulders from the fight, he stopped in surprise. "You made breakfast?" he asked. Arya lifted her chin. "It is not difficult." Daniel gave a small smile. "No, but it's different coming from you." She frowned, but inside, a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she wanted to share his burden, even in a small way. In the days that followed, Arya began to see Earth differently. Daniel took her on small walks beyond the village. He showed her the rolling hills, the rivers that glittered in sunlight, the forests alive with sound. At night, they sat outside and looked at the stars. Arya had always seen the stars from the deck of a ship, distant lights passed quickly as they traveled through space. But here, lying on the grass beside Daniel, the stars felt larger, closer, as if the universe itself was listening. "Do you miss your palace?" Daniel asked quietly one evening. Arya thought for a long moment before answering. "I thought I did. But now? I do not know. There is peace here I never knew before." Daniel looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Peace is not something empires give. It's something you find for yourself." Arya turned her eyes back to the sky. His words were simple, yet they carried more weight than any speech of her council. Slowly, her heart softened. She began to laugh at Daniel's small jokes. She began to join him in his work, even if her efforts were clumsy. She helped carry wood, fetched water, and even learned to plant seeds in the garden. Each task felt strange at first, but also strangely satisfying. One afternoon, as they planted rows of vegetables, Arya looked at her hands, covered in dirt. She had never touched soil in her life. Yet now she smiled. Daniel noticed. "Not bad for a princess," he teased. Arya rolled her eyes but could not hide her grin. "Not bad for a human, either." They shared a laugh, and in that simple sound, the walls between them began to fall. But her pride was not gone completely. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Arya said, "You risked your life for me." "Why?" Daniel looked into the flames. "Because you're my wife." Arya pressed. "No. That cannot be the only reason. You could have let them take me. It would have ended your burden." Daniel shook his head. "You're not a burden. You're, you. I protect the people I care about. That's what humans do." His words caught her off guard. She stared at him, unable to answer. For so long she had believed care came from loyalty to her title, her beauty, her power. But Daniel cared without any of those things. He cared for her simply because she was Arya. And that, more than anything, shook her heart. The next day, Arya went to the village alone for the first time. People there did not bow or call her princess. They greeted her with simple smiles, offering her bread or asking about her day. She was treated not as royalty, but as a neighbor. Walking back, Arya felt a strange joy rising inside her. It was not the pride of power or the pleasure of being worshipped. It was something gentler, lighter. She carried it with her as she returned to Daniel. That night, as she watched him read by the fire, she realized the truth she had been avoiding. This punishment had become something else. She no longer felt trapped. She felt free. Arya spoke softly, almost to herself. "Daniel." He looked up. "Yes." She hesitated, then said, "Perhaps this life is not punishment after all." Daniel's eyes met hers, steady as always. It's only life, Arya. What you make of it, that's up to you. Arya felt her chest tighten, but not with anger. With something warmer. Something she had never known in the halls of her empire. For the first time, she admitted silently, I am glad I was sent here. The city of Crystal Towers stood quiet, as if holding its breath. Word had spread that Myra, the alien princess, had walked side by side with Aaron, her human husband, through the great square. For many of her people, this was unthinkable. For others, it was a sign of something new. The Council of Elders gathered soon after. They were not pleased. To them, the marriage had been punishment, not unity. They had forced it to humble her, to remind her of her limits. But now Myra was no longer broken or silent. She spoke with calm fire, and that made them nervous. Aaron knew this. He had seen the stares from the alien guards, felt the whispers that followed him through the halls. Still, he walked tall. Not for himself, but because Myra had asked him to. She had told him, if you bend now, they will see weakness in both of us. Inside the council chamber, the air was heavy. The elders sat in a circle, their silver robes gleaming. Myra stood at the center, Aaron beside her. One of the elders, his voice sharp like glass, said, Princess, you were given to this human to remind you of humility. Yet you parade him before the people as if he is one of us. Do you defy the council? Myra's eyes, bright as stars, did not lower. I do not defy. I stand for what is right. You call this man lesser, but I have seen his courage. When others hide behind walls, he faces storms. When others wait for orders, he acts. You wanted me to learn humility. Instead, I learned truth. Aaron said nothing. He knew his words would carry less weight here. This was her fight, and she had chosen to make it. Another elder hissed, Truth? The truth is that he is human, fragile, short-lived, unworthy of your line. He will weaken our blood. Myra lifted her chin. Or strengthen it. You fear what you do not understand. But I tell you, this strength is not in blood. It is in spirit. And his spirit shines brighter than any jewel in this hall. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. The elders shifted uncomfortably. They had expected her to bow, to apologize. Instead, she had thrown their words back at them with calm strength. Aaron felt pride swell in his chest, but also worry. He knew that the council would not accept this easily. They had ruled for centuries by fear and tradition. A single human standing beside their princess threatened that. Later that night, Myra and Aaron sat together in the quiet garden outside the palace. The moonlight of her world cast silver shadows across the stone paths. Aaron finally spoke. You put yourself in danger today, he said softly. Myra looked at him, her face calm but her hands trembling slightly. I know. But I could not stay silent. They wanted me broken, Aaron. But you showed me I could stand. I will not let them chain me again. He reached for her hand. Her fingers, long and delicate, closed tightly around his. Then whatever happens, he said, we face it together. She smiled faintly. Together. But not everyone shared their bond. The very next day, whispers grew louder across the city. Some called Myra brave. Others called her traitor. Small groups gathered, debating in the streets. A storm was building, not of wind, but of voices. Meanwhile, Aaron began to notice strange movements in the palace. Guards who once ignored him now watched closely. Servants whispered and fell silent when he entered. Something was being planned, and it was not for his safety. That night, as they prepared to rest, Myra whispered, they may try to take you from me. Aaron looked into her eyes. Let them try. They don't know me yet. Humans are harder to break than they think. Her lips curved into a soft smile, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She was a princess of a proud race, but in that moment, she was just a woman who feared losing the one person who had shown her true care. The following day, a messenger arrived. The council demanded Myra appear again, this time without Aaron. Myra refused at once. If they will not face us both, then they face neither of us. The messenger looked startled, even afraid, and quickly left. Aaron could see what this meant. The council was growing desperate. And desperate rulers were dangerous. As night fell again, the sky over the city seemed heavier, darker. The winds carried a strange unease. Aaron and Myra stood together on the balcony, gazing at the alien stars. Myra whispered, "I was forced to marry you as punishment. But now I see maybe it was the greatest gift the stars could give." Aaron squeezed her hand gently. "Then no matter what comes, we'll stand. Not as princess and human. As us." Below, unseen in the shadows of the city, figures moved. Plans were being made. The test of their bond was only beginning. The grand hall of the Xyrath Council was quiet, yet tension filled every corner. The elders waited, their eyes sharp, their breaths measured. Princess Myra entered, her head held high, with Aaron by her side. The whispers of the crowd were audible, though they dared not speak too loudly. This was the day the council expected her to bow, to end her human marriage, and return to her royal duties. Myra's heart beat steadily. She had learned fear in her life, but this was not fear. This was resolve. Beside her, Aaron's hand rested lightly on hers, his presence calm, steady, unshakable. The High Elder spoke first, his voice a cold wind. "Princess Myra, your punishment was to humble you. You were to serve and learn humility. Yet you continue to flaunt defiance. You parade this, human, before the people. Do you not see your disgrace?" Myra's gaze swept the chamber. She saw shock, disapproval, and unease on many faces. But she did not falter. Her voice was clear and strong. "I see no disgrace," she said. "I see truth. This man is my husband. He is brave, loyal, and honorable. He has protected me when others would have fled. He has taught me lessons no palace or council ever could. And for that, I will not leave him." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Some leaned forward, disbelief written in every line of their faces. "You speak against your people, your empire, your own blood," the High Elder shouted. Myra lifted her chin. "I speak for life, for courage, for respect. You call this human weak. I call him strong. He has shown me strength beyond power, beyond titles. That is the lesson I choose to follow." Aaron stood silently beside her, his calm presence reinforcing her words. The council's attempt to intimidate her faltered under the certainty in her tone. One of the younger elders stepped forward, voice quivering. "Princess, but the people, our traditions." Myra's eyes softened, but her tone did not. "Traditions are meant to guide, not to chain. Strength is not inherited from blood alone. It is earned through action, courage, and heart. Aaron has shown me this, and I will stand with him, no matter the cost." For a long moment, the hall was still. Even the guards and scribes held their breath. Then, one by one, the murmurs faded. The council realized they could not move her. She had chosen her path, and no threat could sway her. The High Elder sighed, his voice quieter now. "So be it. Princess Myra has made her choice. The council cannot stop her." Myra turned to Aaron. "We are free, then. Free to live as we choose." Aaron gave a small, proud smile. "Yes. Free together." Outside the palace, the people who had gathered began to cheer. Some had doubted the human, but now they saw him not as a weak outsider, but as a man of courage. Mothers held their children high, and young warriors whispered about the bravery they had witnessed. Aaron had become more than a husband, he had become a symbol of what humans could achieve, even among the stars. Myra felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had feared this marriage as punishment, yet it had become her greatest blessing. She saw now that life was not only about crowns or riches, it was about choices, courage, and the bonds we create with those who stand beside us. That evening, Myra and Aaron walked together through the gardens. The alien moon reflected on the still water of the fountains. Stars sparkled in the sky above, silent witnesses to the decisions that would shape the future. "I never imagined," Myra said softly, "that punishment could become this. Happiness. Peace. Something I never knew I wanted." Aaron squeezed her hand. "Sometimes the universe gives lessons in strange ways. You chose to see the truth, not the fear." Myra smiled. She leaned close, her head brushing his shoulder. "I chose wisely." He looked down at her, warmth in his eyes. "The stars brought us together. You were sent here as punishment, yet it became a gift for both of us." For the first time, Myra felt completely at ease. She had been proud, defiant, and afraid, but now she understood the strength that came from partnership, trust, and love. She did not need to be above anyone. She only needed to stand beside the one who had shown her courage, loyalty, and care. As the night deepened, the palace quieted. The council had returned to their private discussions, the city had settled, and Myra and Aaron remained in the gardens, watching the stars and dreaming of the future. The punishment that had once humiliated her had been transformed into her greatest lesson. And the human who had been her supposed shame had become her protector, her teacher, and the companion she now cherished above all. In that moment, Myra realized that no title, no crown, and no empire could give her what she had found here. She had discovered choice, trust, and a new kind of strength, a pleasure born not from power, but from life shared with someone worthy. The stars above shimmered like a promise. Myra and Aaron, standing side by side, were ready to face whatever the universe might bring, together.